अच्छा, मुझे कैसे पता चलेगा कि कब स्टार्ट करना है?
Abhishek, you are on mute. I have started the event. Abhishek, please.
Okay. So good afternoon, everyone. First of all, thank you so much for taking time out for attending this webinar. At the outset, let me first wish for the health and well-being of you and your family. And at the same time, this is a great event that we just like to announce that Godrej as a group has just completed 123 years yesterday, and we are all very proud to be a part of this glorious organization. So in a way, today's event is also a commemoration of this great milestone. So let me first introduce myself. My name is Abhishek Chaturvedi. I am part of Godrej Material Handling since 2004, and before that I was in the Storage Solutions division. So I have total about 20 years of experience in the intralogistics space. So why are we having this webinar? Many of you may be wondering that what is it about general concepts in material handling? So what happens is in our day-to-day discussions and day-to-day interventions, there are few very basic things which get missed out, which become a big issue at the time of implementation. So the purpose of having this a brief 1 hour webinar is to just apprise all of you of the various pitfalls that can be avoided by taking care of very simple things at the planning stage itself. Now, I understand from this big attendees list that we have. At the last count, my colleagues tell me there are 900 plus participants in this event. So I'm sure there is going to be a mix of audience. Some people who will be real experts already in this domain, and for some people it may be something new that they may be coming across. So I would just like to put across a small disclaimer that in case it sounds too basic for some people, Please excuse me because I'm trying to cover the maximum audience who may not have as much exposure to these concepts. At the same time, for people for whom material handling equipment as a domain is relatively new, I can assure you I will try to be as simplistic as possible so that this becomes a real learning experience for all of you. With that, I would just like to start my presentation, and so as you know that the topic of today's webinar is general concepts in material handling. Now, material handling, if you look at this as a phrase, uh, it captures many aspects. We can even a person moving one sort of carton from one place to another is material handling. A sack kept on a trolley and being moved from one location to another is also material handling. Conveyors carrying material point to point are also material handling. But today's discussion, we are restricting to material handling equipment which are not fixed path, which are mobile material handling equipment. For example, forklifts, stackers, reach trucks, which are free path equipment. They are not fixed path equipment. So let me first begin by explaining what are the various types of material handling equipment. So basically there are two broad types of material handling equipment in terms of the application as such. One is counterbalance truck type of equipment. I'm just going to show you the photograph so that you are able to better understand that. And the second is non-counterbalance truck type of material handling equipment. So first, let me talk about the counterbalance forklift trucks. Now, if you are able to see the picture, you will be able to note that there are three type of equipment which are mentioned. So the first is the diesel forklifts. The second is electric forklifts, and third is special application forklifts. And all these are shown on the right side of the slide, uh, which will give you an idea of the products that we are talking about. So let me just explain in very brief words where exactly a diesel forklift is used. So generally, whenever the application is outside or it's a bit of a rough environment, it's moving on roads outside the plant, heavy material, rough handling, that is where diesel forklifts are used. So that is in general, by the nature of the photographs and pictures that you're seeing, you may be able to get an idea of the various applications where this equipment can be put to use. The next category of equipment is electric forklifts. Now this is one category which is gaining prominence by the day because obviously there are no emissions in electric forklifts and it runs much with lesser sound, much quieter. And again, as far as ruggedness is concerned, it is as rugged as a diesel forklift for a certain up to a certain tonnage. For example, the general tonnage that an electric forklift can carry is 3 tons, though up to 5 ton electric forklifts are now available in the market. However, if you need to go higher, for example, 8 ton, 10 ton, 12 and 16 ton forklifts, you need to definitely go in for uh, a diesel counterbalance forklift. Okay. So these are the various applications of electric forklift. As you can see, they are also used inside the plant or outside the plant premises in a relatively neater environment, relatively cleaner environment, and they can be used both inside and outside. And obviously, because there are no emissions, they are environmental friendly also. Now, next slide, I hope it's visible to all. So this is talking about the various attachments that are used on an articulated on a counterbalance forklift to make it usable for various application, and that is where it brings in a lot of versatility to this product. Now, if you look at these photographs, you'll be able to conceive that whether it is paper roll handling in a newspaper industry or a furnace stoking application in a iron industry or a bale clamp in a textile industry, these are those specific made to order attachments which bring lot of efficiency and productivity in any application. I move on to showcase certain attachments in use. As you can see, there are applications such as long pipe handling or empty container handling. Such sort of attachments really help in making the work easy and eliminating the usage of unconventional equipment or unconventional methods. This way you are able to handle your products in a very safe and efficient manner. Now moving on to warehouse trucks. Now these are, by the name of it, you can judge that these are basically those equipment which are used inside the warehouse or inside the plant. Okay. And the main reason for having these category of products is that forklifts, in spite of being a highly rugged equipment, they occupy a lot of space and they are also constrained by the lift heights that can be accessed using a forklift truck. So to address those two constraints, a separate line of equipment has been developed in the industry, which are known as warehouse trucks, which ranges right from a very basic manually driven hand pallet truck and going up to very high-end man-up machines also. So if you look at the pictures which is there alongside, you will note that we have a hand pallet truck, a powered pallet truck, a stacker, a reach truck, an articulated forklift, tow truck, and platform truck. So just to very quickly explain, a hand pallet truck and powered pallet truck are for ground movement of pallets from one location to another, while the reach truck, stacker, and articulated are for lifting the pallets to a certain height and stacking, destacking from a racking system. So just to give you an idea, a stacker can go up to say 6.3 meters, and a reach truck can go up to say 12 meter, and a articulated can go up to say 12.5 meters. So the basic function of these equipment is to maximize the utilization of space in any warehouse. Okay, and as far as tow trucks are concerned, if you would have noticed, especially in an automobile industry, there are a lot of trolleys which are tugged along from one shop to another shop. That is the application where a tow truck comes in very handy. And as far as the platform truck is concerned, these are the equipment which are generally used in railway workshops for carrying non-homogeneous material like castings, or for that matter maybe tires or small parts from one point to another. So this in short is the category of warehouse trucks. So just to show some products in application. So this is a reach truck in application in a racking system. And similarly, an articulated forklift being shown in application in a racking system. So now the next section that we are talking about is what are the typical material handling applications in a warehouse. Now, so far what we have covered, I have tried to give you an exposure on what are the various types of material handling equipment that are available in the industry. Now what I'm going to talk about is what are the applications which are generally there where these equipment are used, and how do you really broadly select those equipment. Though there may be many parameters, but if you start using these as thumb rules, at least there will be a good beginning as far as selection of material handling equipment is concerned. Now this is a typical layout of a warehouse, okay, where we have tried to show the various applications that are likely to happen in any typical warehouse or a storage area. So you have the applications like dock operations, then you have applications of transportation. So dock operations means you have a container which is docked near your inwards gate. You have to either empty it or stuff it depending on incoming or outgoing material. Then there is something called as staging area, where you de-stuff the container and park it till the time it is taken to the final storage location. And for doing that you need some transportation equipment, and even for taking the equipment from taking the pallets from staging area to the racking area also you need transportation equipment. Now the next is you have different types of racking storages. You have single deep, double deep racking, drive-in, shuttle racking system. We are going to talk about that in a bit. And then the next application is shelving. That is mainly a manual sort of a application where people manually handle small products like nuts, bolts, which can be manually handled in plastic bins. It's a combination of trolleys or bins on pallet trucks which are used in shelving system. And then you have something called as order picking, where instead of using a full pallet, you are doing case picking. You are taking one case at a time and building up an order as per the customer requirement and then shipping it outside the warehouse. And then there is something called as bulk storage, where you are either in a staging area you are keeping it, or the items are self-stacking, which can be stacked one over the other. And that's how you are maximizing the utilization of your space and not investing in racking system, because these are self-stackable. So that is the next type of storage. Now let us talk about the dock operations first. Now these are the pictures which typically show the docking operations. If you see on the top left hand corner, there is a container parked and a person is using a powered pallet truck, which I explained in my one of the earlier slides, to de-stuff a container, and another person is taking a powered pallet truck near the container to stuff it. Similarly, forklifts are also used for doing the same application of container stuffing and de-stuffing. So whenever you have an application which needs docking operations, these are the equipment that you can consider. So I have showcased 4 products, which is if you can see, there are hand pallet truck, powered pallet truck, and then there is something called as dock leveler. This is a very important element of any docking operation, because this is the product which bridges the gap between the ramp and the truck body, so that a forklift or a powered pallet truck can safely and seamlessly transfer material between the truck and the warehouse or the plant, whatever the case may be. Now next, we are talking about the transportation of items from docking or staging area to racking area. So when we talk about the docking operation, it is not only about docking the products, uh, keeping the products out from the container, but storing it in staging area also. In transportation, because you have to clear off that area fast depending on the throughput and depending on the speed of operation that you need, there are different types of equipment which are used for doing that. People try to take 2 pallets at a time, or they try to take BOPTs with long forks where they can handle 2 pallets at a time. So such sort of equipment are used because the basic purpose is to clear the staging area fast. So instead of handling 1 pallet, people tend to use 2 pallets so that they can clear up the staging area in half the time than what they would have taken if they would have been using 1 pallet at a time. So this slide talks about the various products which are used in the industry for transportation. So as you can see, there are powered pallet trucks, double pallet stackers, low level order picker, pedestrian rider stacker, forklift and tow tractor also. So many times there are applications where customers try to keep a cage trolley ready at the staging area where all the items, discrete items are put, and then these trolleys are towed away to the final location using a tow truck. So the next, so now as I go into each of these products, there will be some finer points that I would talk about, which may always be an existing doubt with many of the participants of this webinar. One of the aspects that people may be not very clear about, that can we use a powered pallet truck for closed pallet handling? So the answer is yes. But the main point is that you have to be careful about the dimensions as I have shown here. So the plank thickness, the distance between the two runners, that is very important for us to know whether a BOPT will be able to handle that closed pallet or not. Because you have to understand that the wheels have to not only cross the plank, but when we raise the forks and the wheels come down, it should not happen that they come down and rest on another runner, which may break the pallet. Okay. So that's why it is important. So the answer is yes, it can handle the closed pallet, but we need to be careful. We need to be vigilant of the various dimensions. Okay. So if you have closed pallets in your facility and you are intending to use the BOPT, I would recommend that these aspects are sort of considered before putting the truck in operation. So now we will be talking about the next part, which is racking storage. Now in the racking storage, there are multiple types of equipment which are used. So, and there are many finer points in racking storage that we need to be careful about. So I would like to spend some time on this part because this is the most common aspect which comes into anybody's usage as far as material handling and storage is concerned. So first, let me just show you the various types of racking storages that we have. The first is the single deep racking, which is also known as selective pallet racking system. Now in this, what we need to just take care of is what is the working eye space, what is the loading level which is required. So there are many parameters which are required to consider before designing a racking system or having a compatibility between MHE and the racking system. Okay, too tight an aisle may slow down the operation. Too wide a aisle may waste your space. So there has to be an ideal mix which gives you the most optimum solution. Okay, so so one of the aspects, this is just a thumb rule that we can consider in a industry. So there are racking storages and compatible equipment which are also defined on the basis of aisles in which they operate. Okay, so for example, if I look at starting from below, so counterbalance forklift takes about 3.5 meters or more as the aisle space. If we go next step, then we talk about narrow aisle trucks which operate in 2.7 to 3 meters, which are say reach trucks. Then there are other pedestrian equipment such as stackers which also operate in narrow aisles such as 2.4 to 2.8 meters. Okay. And last but not the least, we have very narrow aisle man-up machines such as turret stock pickers, articulated forklifts, which can work in as narrow aisle as 1.5 to 2 meters. But every application has a uniqueness associated with it. So there is no one size which fits all. So we have to be very careful in making a selection. So in some cases where a very narrow aisle may work out, but in some other cases, it may be a reach truck which may be the right solution for that application. But this is just to give you a thumb rule how the different aisle spaces and the related equipment are selected. Now, taking this a bit ahead, if we assume a certain standard sort of a racking and layout and elevation and on a particular floor plan, and suppose the base level storage with a counterbalance stacker or a counterbalance truck or a stacker is say 4,500 pallets. Taking that as a base, a reach truck will store about 8,000 pallets, which is almost like 70-75% more. And if I take a man-up machine and considering the lift height that it can go up to say 17 meters, then it can go up to 15,000 pallets. Okay, so that's the amount of storage capacity that you can arrive at depending on the various combination of equipment and racking that you go for. Now, in racking storage, there are various types of equipment. And again, as I said, it totally depends on application, and a very important part of that is what is the load that we are carrying. What are the dimensions of the pallet on which that load is placed? Because it is all a function of how the load is being handled with what load center. Because it is simple physics, simple mechanics, whereby either it will be balanced by a counterbalance, or if you look at a warehouse trucks, it will be balanced by the footprint of the equipment. Okay, so if we have too wide a pallet or too long a pallet, we may have to select a suitable equipment, even though it may not be going very high, just to handle that wider configuration because the load center would have shifted. So these are the things that we have to be very careful about before we try to look at a catalog and just say, okay, I need a 1.5 ton forklift or a 2 ton forklift because my pallet is just 2 ton. So we cannot look at just the load in isolation. We also have to look at the size which is going to be handled. Okay, and that's a very, very important criteria of selecting an equipment. So these are the various equipment which are visible in front of you, like stacker, reach truck, single deep and double deep reach truck, articulated forklift, man-up machine, and a stand-up counterbalance forklift is also available in the industry for people to use. Just a quick word on the two types of reach trucks. One, as you can see, is a moving mast type of reach truck, and other is a moving carriage type of reach truck. So basically there is no much difference in terms of application or the ruggedness of either of the two equipments. It's just that the moving mast is more of a European philosophy, and whereas the pantograph type or the moving carriage type is more of a US philosophy of handling products using equipment like reach trucks. Now, the only thing that we have to notice here is that in the pantograph type, which is the US type or the moving carriage type, we can have both single deep and double deep depending on how many pantographs we are using. If we are using single pantograph, it is a single deep reach truck. If we are using a double pantograph, it is a double deep reach truck for storing two pallets one behind the other in the same aisle. Okay. Though people also use telescopic forks on moving mast reach trucks, but that is an attachment that is not an integral part of the equipment like it is in a double deep reach truck, where the double pantograph is an integral part of the equipment. So these are the various parameters that we need to be vigilant about before we select the right material handling equipment. So, for example, as I mentioned, the type of pallet. When I say the type of pallet, it is also a function of whether it is an open type pallet or closed type pallet, and it is more relevant for stacker that you will see in subsequent slides. Next is aisle space. What is the available aisle space that I have, or depending on the equipment that has been selected, a suitable aisle space has to be kept. Because it is important, if we keep too tight an aisle space for the in the interest of storing more, somewhere or the other we will be compromising the throughput, because the trucks will run slower, or they will be there can be some instances of unsafe operations also, where trucks may brush against the racking system and it may lead to some incident. Next is maximum fork height. Again, depending on what is your last loading level, we typically add 200 mm to that to arrive at the most optimum maximum fork height, and then we select whatever is in the range. For example, if your last loading level is say 10.8 meter, so ideally your truck should have a maximum fork height of about 11 meter. Okay, but if in your range you have a choice between 10.9 and say 11.1, you should go in for 11.1 rather than 10.9. I mean, that's the point that I'm trying to make. Okay, you may not exactly get plus 200 mm in the product range of standard equipment. So select the nearest one which is closest to plus 200 mm of the last loading level. Next is derated capacity, a very important parameter. Because what is the capacity that you need at a particular height? As you grow higher, the capacity derates, and it is simple physics. If you are loading, if your base capacity is say 1.5 ton, say at 6.3 meter with a stacker, you will get somewhere close to 600 kgs, 6.3 meters. Okay, so if somebody is not vigilant of this fact, and a stacker is planned for handling 1.5 ton even at 6 meters, then we are looking at some sort of issue. So there will be a different product to consider if derated capacity is a consideration, okay, of 1.5 ton. We may want to go for a reach truck even though the lift heights are not very high. Then next comes collapsed height. That again is a very important consideration. Many times there are doorways which have to be passed through by equipment. So at that point of time, it is important that we select the right mast configuration which has the lowest collapse height. Collapse height means when the forks are completely down, and then what is the height of the mast of that truck. That should be able to pass through the doorways or the underpasses in the racking system. Because if we don't take care of this, again, as I mentioned earlier, these smaller, finer points not taken care of in the planning stage can lead to big issues at the time of actual commissioning of a project. Overall height raised, again an important parameter depending on where your fire sprinklers are placed, where your bulbs and lights are placed, where our ducts are placed, so that when the truck is completely, when the forks are completely raised, they do not go and hit those trusses and lighting systems, which may again cause a safety issue. And last but not the least, it is throughput. Depending on what is the speed of movement that you require, or rather let me put it this way, how much material would you like to take in or take out can also be a very important criteria of defining a throughput. Just to give a very relevant example, suppose in an application, you have a choice between a stacker and a reach truck. Both equipment fit in that application completely. Okay. Now your eye space is matching, dedated capacity is matching, OHL, OHR, everything is matching, and you whether you select a stacker or you select a reach truck, it's one and the same thing. Okay. At that point of time, and then when you go back to the drawing board and look at the commercial offer, a stacker will be somewhere around 6.5 lakh rupees, whereas a reach truck may be somewhere around 14-15 lakh rupees. So almost 2.5 times of that price. Okay. But you will go back and see whether how many pallets do I need to take in, take out, and whether a pedestrian equipment where a person is actually walking behind the truck or standing on the platform and moving, whether I'll be getting the throughput from that equipment, or I should rather go in for one reach truck rather than going in for 4 stackers. Okay, suddenly the techno-commercial reasoning will change when throughput comes into picture. Okay, so that is what I intended to mention, that every parameter is important and nothing can be seen in isolation. So this is a typical sort of a layout. Don't worry if the numbers are not visible. I just wanted to showcase. I hope the cursor is visible to all. So the space between, so this is the top view of a racking layout. So the space in between is the eye space that I was talking about. Now this is the space where the equipment will be predominantly working. So we should have enough space for the equipment to operate. And this is a typical elevation of a racking system where there is a last loading level. And then this is something called as underpass, where if you notice where all these red portions are portions where the equipment will be going under the underpass or through the underpass, so that it doesn't have to take a full turn outside the eye space to reach inside. Okay, so this is the underpass. Now next, if we look at the other aspects of selecting an equipment, so as we said that one of the popular equipment is stacker. So 2 stackers, I hope they are visible to all. Left hand side is the fork over stacker and the right hand side is the wide straddle stacker. Now here comes the important part. The left hand stacker cannot be used for a closed type pallet. Okay, so and it has happened so many times in the industry that we have come across situations where people were not aware of this aspect, leading to a wrong decision and leading to some sort of hardships in terms of exchanging of equipment or slowdown in operations or operations getting hampered because of this. So this is an important parameter that we need to look at. So if you notice in this image, on the fork over stacker, the straddles are going inside the pallet while the forks are up keeping the pallet. I'm talking about the right hand side. Okay, whereas on the left hand side it's a wide straddle which is going alongside the pallet. So you can notice the position of the straddle in both these cases. Now if you notice, if we take a closed pallet for a fork over stacker, this is what is likely to happen. It will not go, and you cannot perform that application with a fork over stacker if your application has closed pallets. Now, next we talk about reach trucks. Again, in reach trucks, as I explained, there is a moving mast reach truck and then there is a moving carriage reach truck, which is used for single or double deep application. Okay. Now, I would just highlight certain critical points which are important in selecting or keeping in mind when a reach truck is being selected for an application. The first is there are different straddle dimensions which uh, are available for pallet widths depending on how the truck is configured. Okay, so with different pallet widths, you have different straddle dimensions. But what happens if your pallet width is wider than the straddle width? Now, there's another point that you have to notice. If you notice in the table, the 1200 width pallet, if we use the widest truck, it is having the highest width. Okay, whereas the first truck which is handling a 1200 wide 800 wide pallet, which is having the lowest width. Now we may take a choice that even though my pallet is 1200 wide, I may still select a 1285 width reach truck. Okay, why? Because if you want to have an aisle space where you want two reach trucks to cross each other while they are moving from one point to another, a 1575 may make it a bit of a struggle, or you may want to keep a very wide aisle space for that. Okay, but if you are not able to accommodate the pallet between the straddles, then you need to take care of one more aspect, which is in the next slide. Okay, now if you see your conventional distance between the top of the pallet and the bottom of the beam in any racking system is say 100 which is enough for the pallet to be taken off and taken away. But if the pallet is not getting accommodated between the straddles, that means it is over the outriggers, you need to take care of the height of that outrigger to keep that additional space. Now these numbers are just for representation purpose. They will change based on the equipment in consideration. Okay, but the point that I'm trying to make here is that you need to be vigilant about this part. Next, we are talking about a double deep racking, which is a very popular way of storage, especially in cold storages where we are trying to maximize cubic space utilization. Here, it is very important that we make the right choices in terms of racking design so that the truck and racking are easily able to work with each other with absolute compatibility. Now, if you notice in single deep racking, the mast remains outside or the outriggers remain outside the racking system, whereas in double deep racking they move below the bottom beam. Okay, or they move inside the racking system. So what does it mean? That for double deep racking it is recommended that you keep a bottom beam, because if you don't keep a bottom beam, either you may have to have a very wide span or you may not be able to operate the truck in that environment. Okay. The second important aspect, because the straddles are going inside the racking system in a way, okay, to be able to place the second deep pallet, so your beam span is going to be different. Now this is one of the most important points that many times gets missed out at the planning stage, leading to some issues in terms of operations. So if, for example, if we are keeping two pallets on a level, generally the beam span on which these pallets are placed will be 2700 wide. So how that is calculated? 1200 plus 1200 and 100 space on each side. So that is 2700 Okay. However, because now we have to accommodate the outrigger, a calculation has to be made which is taking care of these outriggers also being uh, required to go inside the racking system. So you may require, instead of 2700 mm, maybe 2850 or 2900 mm. Okay, so that is what we need to be vigilant and very vigilant about, because this is something, if we go with a conventional beam span and go for a double deep reach truck, it may certainly create some issues at the time of implementation. As I said, eye space is a very important consideration. This picture speaks for itself. For example, a counterbalance forklift will require a very wide space, a reach truck will require a relatively low space, and as I mentioned in my earlier slide, a VNA equipment like an articulated forklift will require equally like relatively much lesser space, or the lowest space in the industry, eye space. Okay, so if eye space is one of the considerations and we want to maximize the storage, this is one of the equipment that may be considered. But one important point here is there is something called as end aisle space. End aisle space means the aisle where the aisle is ending. It's a dead end. At that point, not for any other equipment, but for articulated forklift, you need to keep a minimum space of 750 to 800 mm. 750 to 850 mm, so that the last pallets can be placed, because that is how this truck operates in an aisle, because the truck is not moving, it is only the mast which is articulating along an axis and keeping the pallet. So for it to articulate around its actual axis, it needs that additional space, which is important to be kept at the end of the aisle. Next type of racking system that is popular is drive-in racking system, where the equipment generally goes inside the racking system to do the stacking, destacking. Now, what is important when hello? Am I audible? Hello?
Yes, audible.
Yeah, you're audible now.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. So is the screen visible? Sorry. Yeah. So I hope the screen is visible. I just had a connectivity issue. I'm sorry about that. So drive-in racking system is another popular racking system, as I mentioned, but the important aspects to be considered in this type of racking system is the width of the equipment should be able to get accommodated in the system, because the truck is getting inside the drive-in racking system. And second, the first level should be such that it doesn't become an obstruction for the overhead guard height or the structure of the machine. I'll just show it in the next slide. So this is a typical sort of a elevation of a drive-in racking system on the left-hand side. So you have that cantilever on which the pallets are placed, and on the right-hand side is a truck where you see there is a slight modification which has been done on the reach truck, so that it is able to squeeze through this space between the two cantilevers on which the pallets are placed. Okay. So the next racking system which is getting very popular now is shuttle racking system. Here, instead of truck going in, it is the shuttle which is taking the pallet inside. Those red colored objects that you're seeing on the screen are the shuttles on which the pallets are placed, and these red colored shuttles are remote control operated, and they run on powered motors on batteries, and they take the pallet and place it behind and come back to pick up the next pallet. Okay, so this is a system which is also getting very popular in dense storage. So few pictures where you can see the actual image of a radio shuttle. which carries the pallet from the beginning of the row to the end of the row. Okay. Now in this, one of the most important aspect is because the shuttle is slightly inside and there is also a barrier in front of the racking system, you will not be able to place the pallet exactly till the edge unless you do something called as tip loading. When I say tip loading, that means that you are not inserting the forks completely. Okay, there is a slight gap between the carriage, as you can see, 160 to 200 mm. Now that is very important to be maintained in any reach truck when it is being recommended for a shuttle racking system. And let me tell you, many times this very small aspect gets missed out, leading to pallets are not able to be placed on the shuttle and the whole system comes to a standstill till the time the solution is defined. And the other pitfall is, if we do not define this upfront, there is a change in load center also. And you may have to change the equipment from say 1.6 ton to 2 ton in case your load capacity requirements at a height of say 7 or 8 meters are not able to be met with the extended load center with a lower tonnage reach truck. So that is the criticality of this particular aspect. So as I mentioned in the beginning of the presentation, these are very small basic things, but we understand many times these get skipped out, and that's the reason that we are sort of sharing this basic tidbits of information which helps you to plan better, be vigilant, and have a safe application. So the next we are talking about a shelving system. So in shelving system, there is generally no material handling equipment which is used. But again, you have to be careful that we use, if we are using items like staircases and all, it should be something which is mobile with good stability so that there are no issues. Okay. So one of the products that are used are something called as work assist vehicle, which is just a concept. So I hope that cleared the concept of safe handling even in shelving system. Now next we are talking about order picking. Now this is a very important application where very basic sometimes aspects are sometimes not kept in consideration, because when order picking is an application, there is a specific equipment which is available in the industry for doing a typical order picking. So what happens is, if we use a product like reach truck to do an order picking, either we'll be doing unsafe operations in terms of taking the person up on a cage or something which is really unsafe, or it will be an unproductive sort of application wherein we will try to bring the full pallet down and then try to do the order picking and then put the pallet back. So the entire throughput will really get compromised if we do not use the right equipment. So these are the various applications of order picking. And another debate which keeps on happening across the industry is whether a powered pallet truck can be used as an order picker. In some cases it may work out, but really in high throughput applications, we may look at something like low level order picker, which is the right equipment for a low level order picking. And when I say low level order picking, it is picking from the ground and ground plus one level. Okay, so these are the various categories which are available on this on this category of application, which is order picking. So I'm just moving on. So this is the first one, is the low level order picker. I'll just quickly run a video for all of you to understand when I talk about why this is a typical order picking. So so in the interest of time, so basically in that video, what we wanted to showcase was that an order picking is a specific application where the person is generally walking alongside the equipment, rather than like a BOPT where the full pallet is taken from one point to another. It's all about efficiency in that operation. Every second or every minute saved in every trip, somewhere it adds up at the end of each duty cycle, and it keeps adding on till the end of the month, year, and it finally turns out to be a big sort of a saver if we go for the right equipment. So the next is the man up turret stock picker, where as you can see a man is near the pallet to pick up the goods, and this can also handle full pallets. So these are the various types of order pickers which are available in the industry, depending on the size of the equipment, the need of the application, and the different SKUs which are used in any industry. So again, a very basic thing, if the order picking requires a person to move on to the pallet to be nearer to the stacking point, so there has to be a cage around the pallet for safety purpose along with a lanyard, operator lanyard. And then there are various guidance systems which must be installed for getting safety as well as productivity. So it can be either rail guidance or wire guidance. So the next is bulk storage, where, as I mentioned, self-stacking items are kept one over the other, and we use different types of equipment to do this bulk storage. So one of the most popular equipment is electric forklifts, three-wheeler electric forklift, because it occupies less space. So generally people go in for these equipment. And other than these are the other equipment which are used in bulk storage of equipment. The last topic before we end my session and I go on to the questions is about flooring. So I have not mentioned any comments here because this is a very wide topic, and we as part of material handling industry are no subject matter experts in flooring. But of course, I must say that this is a very important parameter in ensuring the longevity of equipment, because a good floor ensures that your maintenance costs are the lowest and your truck runs longer, safer. And there is something called as TR34 guidelines, which are internationally recognized guidelines, which are generally used for having these industrial floorings. And the second and the last topic is, many times people consider epoxy to be a good flooring solution. See, for item like material handling equipment, which is having a self weight of 3 to 7 tons with load and without load, epoxy is not a load carrying member. So epoxy is generally used where we have stationary equipment, people moving around. That is where an epoxy is generally recommended. Places where MHE is moving, epoxy is generally not recommended, and certainly not to fill up the gaps. Because once you fill up the gaps using epoxy, at the first look you will think that you have made the floor okay. But once the truck starts moving onto it, it will start getting into those crevices. The flooring will start, the epoxy will start getting peeled off, and then there will be sort of issues about flooring getting damaged over a period of time. Okay, so that is, I thought that is one topic I must talk about. So with that, I am at the end of my scheduled time of the presentation. Next, I am ready to now take on certain questions if they are there. So let me have a look. So one of the questions which has come in is, can we convert a single deep reach truck into a double deep reach truck? So see, technically, if I look at it, if you have an attachment like a telescopic fork attachment on a moving mast reach truck, that reach truck gets converted into a double deep reach truck. But when we talk about a pantograph type of reach truck, as I said, that pantograph is an integral part of the design. Okay, so either you have a single deep reach truck right up front, or you go for double deep reach truck. Technically, it may be possible, but doing it at a field level may be a bit of a challenge. Doing it at plant or a warehouse, not exactly in the OEM's plant, that may be a challenge. So the next question is, does wave require special floor? Okay. Yes, like any material handling equipment which is a man-up machine, you need to be vigilant about the floor. It has to be flat, it has to be smooth, it has to have that adequate load-bearing capacity for it to function smoothly. And you can imagine, if the flooring is rough or not proper, or is having aberrations, the person traveling at a height will not feel comfortable in operating that equipment. So yes, so the answer is yes, you need to have a floor which is adequate for a wave. If my floor has slope, will stacker run? So that's the next question. So see, stacker, if you notice, a stacker has very low ground clearance. So in gradability or in handling slopes, one of the aspects that you have to be very careful about is, one is the machine and the motor capability to negotiate those gradients. That is one part of it. The second part is, when you are completing that gradient either on the top or at the bottom, there has to be enough space between the straddle and that top to be able to negotiate that. So many times that ground clearance may be a challenge in handling slopes. So to answer in simple words, it's it can operate in gentle gradients, but really it is not recommended for a ramp sort of a application. So the next question that we have got here is battery operated stacker useful in drive-in racking? By all means, but there are certain thumb rules that we have to be careful about. See, a stacker is a pedestrian equipment. So if your drive-in system is say more than 4 deep and more than say 3 or 4 high, there are two aspects to it. One, a pedestrian equipment will essentially be very slow. Any which ways, a drive-in and MHE is a slow operation because when you're moving in a constrained environment, your focus is maximizing storage. To an extent, even if the throughput is getting compromised, that is okay with the user because that is the choice that the user has made. But putting a stacker in that application will further slow down the speed because, as I said, it's a pedestrian equipment. And secondly, carrying it over long distances may also have a stability issue over a period of time because a operator operating a stacker has to keep that attention span for that long walk inside a very deep driving system. So yes, if it is 2 to 3 deep driving system, 3 to 4 high, we can use a stacker. Anything deeper than that, anything higher than that, we must go in for either a forklift or a reach truck. Okay. So the next question is, which double deep reach truck is better, pantograph type or extended fork? So I will say this is both are having their pros and cons. Okay, so let me first explain what are the two types of double deep stacking that we have. One double deep stacking that we do is when you are having an attachment on the moving mast reach truck, which extends out to give you that double deep reach. Okay, now in that situation, one of the things that we need to be careful about is that because the load center has shifted so much, your load carrying capacity in the second deep will be half of what it is in first deep. Okay. Secondly, when you are doing that deep an application and you have say instead of 800 kg you are getting 400 kg, so either you have all the application at 400 kg or you have an application or you tell the operator that if you're keeping first deep you keep 800, if you're keeping second deep 400 kg, and in practical terms it becomes difficult. So that's the second problem, managing this differential load handling. And third, if you are consistently holding heavier than recommended loads, these double deep telescopic forks may have a tendency to sag over a period of time in case you are sort of loading more than what is required. Now this is not something that you may face in double deep racking because in that you are not extending the fork, you are extending the full carriage. But what is the disadvantage in double deep pantograph type? As I mentioned, you may need a bottom beam, okay, which may not be a requirement in a pantograph in a moving mast with telescopic forks. I hope I am able to make myself clear. It's a bit of a confusion always what to select between the two. So we, as I said, we have to see it application by application. Both have their pros and cons. So we have to look at it in totality. So next question which is come in is, what is the minimum and maximum height for which we can use reach truck in the shuttle racking system as load of the pallet is same throughout? Now again, this is something that we have to really look at the application, because as I mentioned during the course of the presentation, you have the heights available till say 12 meters in some range and even 13.5 meters in reach trucks. Your question is really valid. What equipment to select, in the sense that it is not only the height, but you also have to look at the load. That is what you have mentioned in that, as the load of the pallet is same throughout. So we have to select what is the load that is required to be handled at the highest height in the shuttle racking system, and after putting that metal block 200 away, are we getting that capacity or not? And accordingly you have to select that particular equipment. And of course, if you contact the OEM, they will be the right persons to suggest this to you. But the important point of this webinar is that this is the aspect that you as a user must be vigilant of, that is that load block has to be placed on the forks. Okay. So one very interesting question has come up: can articulated truck replace turret stock picker? See, I always believe there is nothing like one replacing the other, because every equipment is unique and every equipment is made for a specific purpose. For example, we were talking about a low level order picker versus a powered pallet truck. We ran a small video also to understand that what exactly is a low level order picking, which we generally do with a BOPT. Similarly, between turret stock picker and articulated forklift, there is a vast difference in terms of the product design platform itself. An articulated forklift is a man down machine, a turret stock picker is a man up machine. A turret stock picker can go up to 17 meters, whereas articulated can go up to 12.5 meters. You need super flat floor for turret stock picker, but you don't need super flat floor for articulated forklift. And the load capacities will also be different for both trucks. You need a guidance system for turret stock picker, you don't need a guidance system for articulated forklift. So basis that, there is nothing which replaces one another. Based on that application, we have to select. Now, if your question is, I am running an articulated forklift, can I replace it with a turret stock picker? Theoretically, yes, definitely it is possible, but an OEM has to come and validate whether everything is in line or not. And definitely you may have to do something about the flooring, because for a man-up machine, a super flat flooring is required. I hope I am able to answer that question. So the next question I have got is, in case we need to move from a HOPT to battery operated one on mezzanine, should mezzanine surface be modified? Now this is a very tricky question, because mezzanine is a structure which is based on steel, nuts, bolts and all that, and everything has a load carrying capacity. Now a mezzanine is at a conceptual level, it is meant for person movement. Okay, at a very theoretical, at a very conceptual level, when any architect or any contractor is defining or designing a mezzanine floor, it is not being designed exactly for a material handling equipment. But if you need to have a design whereby a BOPT has to run on it, definitely the load bearing members of that mezzanine have to be much stronger. If you contact the OEM, they can give you the load requirements, that front axle load, dynamic load requirements, static load requirements of that product, which must be incorporated in the design stage for the mezzanine to be made as per the BOPT or any powered equipment requirement. Because it is not only about the weight of the equipment, it is also about that equipment moving on that. And HOPT to BOPT upgradation on the same mezzanine floor without intervention of the mezzanine floor is not recommended. I mean, it should first be checked and then only it should be taken from HOPT to BOPT. So the next question, I think we have time for another 3 questions. So we will, because we are running out of time for this webinar. So the first of the 3 questions that I have in front of me is, when do we offer a counterbalance stacker? Is it recommended to use PU wheel MHE over epoxy flooring? If not, what is the alternate option against PU? And also how to define the per wheel loading impact on the floor? Now, the first question, when do we use a counterbalance stacker? As I mentioned, whenever you have a closed pallet, that is one of the applications where we go in for a counterbalance stacker. That is one. Second, many times we don't have trained or operators having license or a driving license or a recommended license which can be used to operate a forklift. So the application actually requires a forklift, but you also want to do with people who are either not on rolls or they don't have license. So these people are given a counterbalance stacker because you don't need really a license to operate a pedestrian equipment like a stacker. So that is another aspect which people go in for. And third, obviously, if the area is not such and you have closed pallet and you cannot accommodate a forklift and you cannot use a fork over stacker, that is the time when people go in for counterbalance stacker. Okay. How to define per wheel loading impact on the floor? There are calculations available. If you contact any OEM, they will have some calculations around that, depending on whether it's a 3-point suspension or a 4-point suspension. Basis that it may vary from product to product. Okay. The next question that I have got is, can you please explain again derated capacity and collapsed height? Okay. So let us assume that you have a reach truck and you have two sort of storage areas side by side. Okay. And you want to use the same reach truck in those two warehouses which are divided by a door. Okay. Now, when you keep the forks up, obviously, because the nature of the mast is such that telescopically the masts will come out. Okay, but there will be a certain base height of that mast. The base height of that mast. For example, if I say a 9-meter MFH reach truck may have something like a 3.8 or 3.9 meter of collapsed height when the forks are completely down. Now, if your door height is say 3.5 meter, obviously a 3.9 meter reach truck may not be able to go through that door. So the solution may be either you have individual reach trucks in both these areas or you increase the height of the door. One of the two options only you can have because the reach truck will not be able to pass through because of a higher collapsed height. I hope that collapsed height concept is clear to you now. Last, about derated capacity. Now, like any physics or mechanics principle, as I mentioned, at lower heights, you have a certain capacity. As you go higher, as you move away from the footprint of the truck, obviously because of that length, your capacity starts decreasing. So if your pallets are weighing say 600 kgs all across and you want to go up to say 11.5 or 12 meters, you need to select an equipment which can give you 600 kgs at that height. So that may mean that you may have to opt for 1.6 ton base capacity equipment to handle say 600 kgs at say 10 or 11 meters, depending on what configuration we are going in for. So even though you don't need 1.6 ton at the base capacity, so that is the meaning and the relevance of derated capacity. So I will take the last question before I wind up this session. So can you explain the function of a drum handler and how many areas are comfortable for stacking drums using drum handler? Is there any video for same? Of course, we can share some videos separately. Drum handler function is, as the name suggests, it is to stack the drums one over the other. That is one function, and many times, so that is basically the function of a drum handler as an attachment. Okay, but there are also applications where drums are handled horizontally using a certain forks or something where the where the drums are lied down and then they're placed on systems like cantilever system where they rest before they are taken out for deliveries. But when you talk about drum handler attachment, it is to hold the drum and either to turn it or to raise it and place it on another drum. How many areas are comfortable? I'm not very sure about that question, but if I understand you correctly, can we do block stacking with that? Yes, we can do block stacking with that, and we can place it side by side. And obviously, we have to take care of the part that what is the space required for the drum handler to get engaged with the drum to pick it or keep it. Okay. So with that, I think we are at the end of our stipulated time. So once again, thank you so much for being a part of this webinar. A very small request, in your chat box, we would have put in a feedback link. We will be very, very grateful if you could take just 2 to 3 minutes out of your valuable time to fill in that feedback. And it will be a great sort of help to us because it will tell us where all we can improve and we can come up with more such sessions that meet your requirement. Thank you very much. Stay safe, stay healthy. Bye-bye.